The 360th edition of the Four Corners podcast starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
And that could make a difference. Lawson at the buzzer. Got it! Maybe not. Ty Lawson wins it at the buzzer.
Deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Gets the roll. Here we go. Page has it. Carolina down one. 84-83. Page into the front court with 4 seconds. Page to the rim. Got it! Got it! 9/10 of a second to go. Inbounds. Washington gets it to Warren. His full court shot. No good. Marcus Page baby. Does it for the Tar Heels. Carolina wins it.
Don't force it if you're Gus.
Comes in. Blocked by Meeks. Buried up ahead to Jackson. And he tucks it down for the 5-point lead. Matthews off the mark. And this year, the confetti is going to fall for North Carolina. They're not going to be denied this time. Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome to another live edition of the Four Corners podcast here on a Thursday afternoon. A little over 2.5 hours since Carolina secured and earned a blowout win of Florida State in the ACC Tournament quarterfinal round to advance to tomorrow night's semifinals, where they await the winner of Pittsburgh and Florida State. That game coming down to the wire right now in Washington, D.C. Josh and Anthony hanging out here with you once again. Going to recap today's win over Florida State. We'll do what we do in every recap. We'll take a look at the box score. You'll hear from head coach Hubert Davis, stat of the game, takeaways, discussions, all that and so much more as Carolina earned a blowout win of Florida State this afternoon. And with that, we'll just go ahead and jump right into this recap. And look, this game was it was ugly to say the least to start the game. It was 5-5 with a little over 5 minutes into the game, and it was like 15-15 or so, around the 11-minute mark. But Carolina goes on an extended 31-15 run. After that point, they closed the run on they closed the half on a 20-7 run to really blow the game open to take a 46-30 lead, and simply never look back. And kind of like what they did against Notre Dame in the home finale, they put the game away early and never allowed the opponent to get back into the game. And that's something we talked a lot about during the season, that Carolina would build these double-digit leads, but you would find yourself in a close game at the under 4-minute mark in the second half. Not the case today. Carolina smelled blood in the water, and when they decided to turn it on and they upped the energy and the effort and the intensity, they wiped the floor of a Florida State team that in two previous matchups had played Carolina, despite losing to them twice, had played Carolina as tough as anybody in the ACC all season long.
Yeah, and that was the thing. It looked like early in the game we were dealing with a very similar circumstance. It looked like Carolina was locked in for another tough battle. And, credit to them. I thought there were a lot of things that sort of changed for Carolina. But, it just – you saw the hustle plays, and one from Elliot Cadeau, I think, was really what energized this team. And once he got on the floor, dived for a loose ball, created a turnover right after a turnover from Armando Bacot, that was really it. You never really saw Carolina turn back there. So I definitely think, for Carolina, this was the type of performance that they needed. You wanted to see them put together, a real strong showing in this first game against a Florida State team that, like we said, coming in had a little bit of momentum. You were feeling pretty good if you were Florida State about what happened yesterday against Virginia Tech, and they thought, they might be in a rhythm. And I thought early in the game, a couple of the mid-range jumpers that they hit, it looked like they were in rhythm. But this was, a really strong effort from Carolina. They found a way to eventually take control of the game. And then the thing is when they took control of the game, they never relinquished control, and they further extended that lead by what they did in the at the start of the second half. And that's about as dominant of a win as we've seen from Carolina so far this season. Because, Syracuse, they dominated them. That game was at home. You look at Notre Dame, dominated them. That game also at home. This was a game in a neutral site against a team that had fought you tough in each of the first two matchups that you played against them. So this might actually end up being Carolina's most dominant win if you look back and compare them.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. The Heels scored on 18 of their final 21 first half possessions. Not even championship teams do that at this level. That's high level efficiency, and it just shows you what this team is capable of whenever they're playing the right way. And I thought the thing about it was their game plan was right from the word go. They were aggressive. They were attacking the paint. They were getting rebounds left and right. And it felt like while the game was still in the balance early on, that Carolina was going to eventually be able to flex their muscle. And when they did, they were able to do it in a big way and dispatch of an opponent that has played them really, really tough so far in the previous two matchups. Also, just a noteworthy stat, Carolina is now 22-0 as a number one seed in the quarterfinal action in the ACC tournament. That's a number that is impressive, especially you look around conference tournaments this year, and you've seen one seeds really struggle in their first action of whatever conference tournament that it is, and Carolina was probably made aware of that, and they did not lack energy, effort, anything like that in a sleepy environment. This team was ready to go, and that's why they were able to really cruise to a 25-point win. Let's take a look at the box score, and man, it's a pretty one for the Heels. They shoot 52% from the field. They were 34 of 65. Meanwhile, Florida State shot just 41%. They were 25 of 61. The three-point shot, really effective for the Heels. They were 8 of 19 from behind the three-point line. That's 42%. On the flip side, Florida State shot just 25% from deep. They were 4 of 16. Carolina got to the foul line and converted. 16 of 20 made free throws. That works itself out to 80%. Meanwhile, Florida State was 13 of 18. That's 72%. Carolina did turn it over 13 times, but just 15 points off of turnovers. Meanwhile, Florida State, 12 turnovers, and Carolina scored 23 points off of them. The rebounding battle wasn't even a battle. Carolina won that 48-22, 31-15 on the defensive glass, 17-7 on the offensive glass, and Carolina's 17 offensive rebounds resulted in 17 second chance points. Florida State's bench did outscore Carolina's 30-29. Points in the paint, 46-24 in favor of Carolina. Fast break points, 26-6 in favor of Carolina. And Carolina assisted on 18 of their 34 made baskets. Meanwhile, Florida State assisted on 10 of their 25 made baskets. The game was tied 6 different times. There was 5 different lead changes, but all in all, Carolina did lead for a commanding 32 minutes and 4 seconds in today's ball game. So that's a look at the box score. Let's now transition to the head coach, Hubert Davis, and his quote after the game. He spoke with Jones Angel on the Tar Heel Sports Network, and he talked about the quality of shots this team his team was able to get today against Florida State's defense.
We like the quality of shots that we got against the way that they play defensively. They switch everything. They have tremendous length and athleticism, so they take you out of pretty much every one of your sets. And so, going anytime you play Florida State, you think about defense and rebounding, but you're also really thinking about offensively. How are you going to generate good shots? And I just felt like we have a number of playmakers that can not only make shots, but create offense, create shots for us, and that allowed us to have success on the offensive end.
You look at Carolina's offensive performance, and you score over 90, you shoot over 50% from the field, you shoot over 40% from three. It starts with the right game plan and attacking this defense the right way. And, you go back to the first matchup where Carolina got down double digits. That game was a game where weren't finishing at the rim, settling too much for jump shots. They got down, a big margin. The second game, Carolina, offensively played well outside of the fact they couldn't quit from turning it over. Today, none of those things were a big issue. Carolina was aggressive from the word go, living inside the paint. They forced that defense to collapse, and you were getting open three-pointers as opposed to having to take contested three-pointers. You couple that with you weren't turning it over quite as frequently as you have, and that's the recipe to put the ball in the hoop as much as Carolina did today. This isn't the best offensive team in the country, but I mean they're 15-2 this year when they score more than 80, and when they score more than 90, they're unbeatable. And they score a little bit differently. Their defense this year has fueled their offense more often than not. But you look at the shot selection, something that we've talked about a lot this year. And Hubert Davis was right that with the way Florida State switches everything, it makes it tougher to get certain guys the type of shots they want. But from a shot selection perspective, Carolina displayed a level of discipline in that area as well as they have in every game, and it's a big reason why they were as efficient on the offensive end.
Well, yeah, I mean, they realized pretty early in the game that they had to just get the ball inside because Florida State just didn't have anything for them defensively. And so I thought the focus was to get there early and often. The guards got downhill and did a really great job with that. Elliot Cadeau probably had his best game in a few weeks when it came to the offensive end of the floor in terms of attacking the basket. And that was really the difference for Carolina. They got those easy looks early on, and it really set up what you saw at the start of the second half, which was Cormac Ryan from the outside knocking down the shots to extend the lead back to 21 and eventually, out of reach even further. So I think that, we've liked the shot selection really the entire season, even against really good defensive teams. Carolina's run into a lot of them here towards the end of the season, some of the best in the conference. And it's been very rare that we have been frustrated with the shots that they have been taking. And now, when we were seeing that, it was during that stretch where Carolina was going through their dip. These last few games, ever since that NC State game, that's starting in that second half, you really feel like Carolina has taken the shots that are there for them, which again goes back to what we saw from this team when they were playing their best basketball earlier in the season. So, I mean, there's plenty of reasons to be confident with where this Tar Heel team is at right now. And the fact that they are returning to the shot selection that we saw earlier in the year, they're moving the ball incredibly well on that end of the floor, is a big part of why you should feel confident that this team can make a deep run in March.
Let's move on to the stat of the game and a lot of different areas where Carolina excelled. I went with rebounding because Carolina was plus 26 on the glass against an ACC team. And dude, even plus 26 on a mid-major is, unless you're just playing, a school from like the MAC or the Northeastern Conference, like plus 26 is really tough to do. But to do it against Florida State is even more impressive. Are they as big and as long and as athletic as they were in their heyday? No. Leonard Hamilton has gone to wanting to be more guard-centric because that's where the game is ultimately won and lost now. But, Carolina just showed, just so much effort, and it was just relentless. From the word go, it was a non-negotiable that they were going to get to the glass. And look, you had two guys record double-digit rebounding totals. It shouldn't surprise you that it was Armando Bacot and Harrison Ingram, but Seth Trimble with 5 off the bench, Jalen Washington with 6 off the bench, Jalen Withers with 7 rebounds off the bench. It was up and down as impressive and as dominant a rebounding performance as we've seen. And we said it back in January and February. Like I left the Oklahoma win saying, guys, this isn't a rebounding team. This team isn't equipped to rebound the ball with the best teams in the conference, let alone the best teams in the country. Well, you flash forward to today, they're the best rebounding team in the ACC. They're the 8th best rebounding team in terms of average rebounds per game. And, if Carolina's going to rebound the ball that well the rest of the way, it really pushes them into that conversation for being that 4th team to contend for a national championship with the likes of UConn, Purdue, and Houston.
Well, look, I mean, the way they rebounded today, should you expect that every time that Carolina plays? Probably not, because there are teams that are going to be built a little bit differently, probably built to rebound a little bit better than the group that we saw today. Now, I'm going to be honest, I was shocked that the rebounding margin was that big. And I know Florida State's not nearly as good as they've been in years past on the glass, and we talked about it last night. They're a team, they don't have these 7-footers that they've had in years past. But with that being said, I still thought Carolina today, just from the word go, was absolutely dominant. I mean, the first offensive possession they have, they get an offensive rebound. Actually, I think they get 2 offensive rebounds and have 3 looks at the basket. Now they got fouled. They didn't call it. And at that point, I was freaking out and was thinking, oh boy, we're in for a long day here. But for Carolina, I think you saw that was something that was communicated to them out of the gate. And I think it goes back to, just the effort level that we saw from this group. And that was something that Hubert Davis was pushing with his guys. And, he said in his press conference, or at least his chat with Jones Angel of the Tar Heel Sports Network, that he didn't really see it early in the game. But I thought rebounding-wise, it was there pretty much the entire time. And Armando Bacot was the guy that really set the tone there. I mean, 6 of his 10 rebounds on the offensive end of the floor. Harrison Ingram was right there with them, 5 of his 10 on the offensive glass. And, I mean, look, they did a really good job on the defensive glass as well. There's no denying that. But, I mean, it was just an all-around complete effort to crash the boards. As you mentioned, I mean, Elliot Cadeau, 4 rebounds for him. I mean, just an all-around great performance for him, which I know we'll talk about a little bit more here as we go along. But, I mean, yeah, this is the type of rebounding effort that you want to see from this team more consistently moving forward, especially in some of those early round games in the NCAA tournament. This is what could allow them to get some of those easier wins that allow you to get your legs underneath you in the tournament and be ready for some of those matchups later on in the tournament that are going to go down to the wire. So this, I put it in the article that is up on the website right now. You guys can read it. To me, that was as close to a Roy Williams era rebounding performance as I can remember from a Hubert Davis team, because it really doesn't get much more dominant than that.
No, you're right.
Quality of shot.
Shut up, Hubert.
Whoa. Come on, man.
You're right. And look, it was fun to watch. It was impressive to watch. The goal, the challenge is going to be to build upon that going into tomorrow's game against. It looks like it's going to be Pittsburgh. They're up 8 with 1:20 to go. And look, if Carolina's going to play deep into the NCAA tournament, you got to rebound. And you got to get to the glass, and to have the effort from your front court and your back court was really impressive to see that so far or in this game today. Well, there's our first glance, our first look at the win over Florida State. Coming up next, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the win. We'll talk about great performances from a trio of Carolina's starters. Talk about a great defensive effort and a bunch of other things. But first, we got to get you a word from one of our partners.
Hey there, Josh here for the Autograph Fandom app. Want to get rewarded for listening to our show? The team at Autograph, co-founded by Tom Brady, is redefining the fan experience by letting users earn points for the acts of fandom they take every day, like listening to this show. The Autograph Fandom app gives you access to your favorite UNC content in one place and offers rewards like tickets, exclusive merchandise, and much more. You're already listening to our show, but now you can earn points and get rewarded for it. Head over to the Apple App Store and search for Autograph Fandom Rewarded and download it today for free using the referral code HEELTOUGH. Link and code are also in our podcast description.
Make sure you get over to the Apple App Store, search for the Autograph Fandom Reward app, use that promo code HEELTOUGH, and get rewarded for being a fan. Help us help you. Let's get back into the win over Florida State. And the first thing I have written down for takeaways was Carolina builds off offensive performance at Duke, where, of course, we all saw how Carolina played in Cameron, scored over 80 points, shot over 50% from the field. They were effective from three. And today you score 92. You shoot 50% from the field. You shoot 42% from three. You convert on your free throws. How about 46 points in the paint, 26 fast break points? Carolina was running off of misses. They were running off of makes. And, you know, the one thing I wanted to talk about was, you had three starters score 14 points or more. That being Cormac Ryan, who had 14 points on 5 of 7 shooting, Armando Bacot, who had 14 points on 5 of 8 shooting, and RJ Davis, who had 18 points on 7 of 15 shooting. But the guy that I think really set the tone was Elliot Cadeau, because he was as aggressive as he's been all season long. And it felt like whenever he wanted to get to the basket, he was able to get to the basket. He had the sequence where, he drove the lane and finished through some contact. That was followed by another sequence where he drove the lane, or he was able to get a steal, and he took it down the other way and went in for a layup. And we've talked about his maturation a lot. And one thing he doesn't have is a consistent outside jump shot, and that's okay. I think he stays in the program and he continues to get coached by Hubert Davis. That jump shot will come, but it's March, guys, and March is all about guard play. It's probably the most said cliche this time of the year, and Carolina's going to need him to be an impact. He's going to need to be an offensive force for this team to go through this tournament. And as we get into the NCAA tournament, they're not going to go deep into the NCAA tournament without having him be a factor offensively. And he's got as quick a first step as any guard in the country. He's shown the knack and the ability to finish through some contact. And so you really have to like what you saw today. I came away impressed. And look, his numbers don't blow you away. Like, you're not going to sit here and pass out over 8 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. But, it was just a very impactful performance from him, and a performance that fueled Carolina getting big games from those three guys that put in 14 points or more. First one, Cormac Ryan, follows up that performance at Duke, where he scored 31 points and made 6 3-pointers. Today, 14 points, 5 of 7 from the field, was 3 of 4 from 3, and kind of like in the same breath with Elliot Cadeau. Carolina, I think, could make the second weekend not having Cormac Ryan be a big offensive piece. But if they were going to make the Final Four and compete for a national championship, he was going to have to emerge as the scorer that he was brought in the transfer portal to become. And I think you go back to that second half against Syracuse. Yes, Carolina lost the game, but he made a number of 3-pointers. Since then, he's become a much bigger scoring threat. He carried Carolina in the win at Virginia. We all know how important he was in the win at Duke on Saturday. He shows up today, 14 points today, efficient from the field. Like, as much as Elliot Cadeau is the X factor for Carolina, if there's an X factor, B, Cormac Ryan is definitely that guy. Because if he can shoot 35, 36% for the rest of the month, it feels like Carolina is much more capable of making a Final Four run as opposed to when he was shooting in the upper 20 percentile or the low 30%.
Well, look, don't get it wrong. And look, I had no idea what you said for about 2 minutes there because I was gone. My internet connection was terrible, so I had to sprint down the hallway here and get into a room where the internet connection is better. But in case I do repeat anything that you said, I do apologize. But look, I mean, with Elliot Cadeau, the thing is that you're at the point now where you probably can survive performances where he is not great. Because we've seen it here recently where he's had games where he has not been phenomenal and Carolina's been fine. The big reason is you got Seth Trimble that can step up. If Cormac Ryan can't hit threes from the outside, then there's no one that really comes off the bench that can do that for Carolina. Like, we thought maybe Jalen Withers would eventually find his stroke from the outside because he was a guy that could stretch the floor at Louisville. We haven't seen that. It's not there. So, yeah, I mean, I think in order for Carolina to get to where we think they're capable of getting to me, it's Cormac Ryan's the most important guy on this team. And you saw it again today because the first half, you saw just about every guy in the starting lineup besides Cormac had their moments where they looked really good. Armando early in the game establishes the inside presence, gets a lot of easy baskets. Harrison Ingram helping down there, gets a couple of mid-range jumpers, does a good job on the glass. Elliott, you saw him getting on the floor on the defensive end and then driving the basket on the offensive end. And RJ was doing his thing as well, hitting some really tough step-back shots and drawing fouls and getting to the line. Cormac was the one guy that wasn't affecting the game nearly that much. But then to start the second half, when it looked like Florida State was going to make a push, they cut it to 12, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, Florida State's probably going to make a little bit of a push here. Carolina's got to be ready. This could be another one of those games where they have a big halftime lead, the team makes a run, and then we'll have to see how they respond. Well, they didn't. They cut that lead, that run off at 12 because Cormac Ryan just said, look, it's my time to take over. He hits a couple of outside shots, gets to the free throw line as well. That's the thing that's different about what we've seen from him here recently. 14 points, not going to blow anybody away. It's not his best performance of the season. But, I mean, man, this guy is starting to find his shooting stroke. And when Carolina needs him to hit shots, he seems to be there for him. And that is such a huge difference from where we were at just a couple of weeks ago.
You look at the games that RJ and Armando had, they're not going to blow you away. RJ, 18 points, 7 of 15 from the field, 3 rebounds, 3 assists in 30 minutes. Armando did post his 83rd double-double, 14 points, 10 rebounds in 26 minutes. I just felt like it was important for them to bounce back individually after not having the best of games at Duke, right? Like, they definitely made plays that, impacted Carolina's win and helped them secure the ACC regular season title. But they both scored just 9 points. Like, everyone knows this, they need to score the ball more in this tournament and in the NCAA tournament, for them to achieve all their goals and dreams and wishes. And I had no worry of that. But I thought it was important for them, first time out in 5 days, not to have a hangover effect. And they both, at different points in the game, were the best player on the floor for Carolina, and really just established themselves as a tandem that was too much for Florida State. And it feels like as they go into the semifinal game, which it will be against Pittsburgh, and newsflash, we'll be back later live tonight previewing the game against Pitt. They needed to maybe get some more confidence in themselves, and both of them had solid games in the win over Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, they both did. And I mean, I think that's kind of the point that we've gotten to with these guys, is that we know whenever we need them to step up, they're going to be able to step up for Carolina. And you saw it again today. They were both huge and at different points. And that was the thing. I think, it was kind of everybody, right? Everybody kind of had their moments in this game, all 5 starters, where it seemed like they knew, okay, it's time for me to step up and be the guy that, can take over this game. And I think that was amazing to see, because that's when this team is at their best. So I definitely feel like this is what we want to see from this group. This is when they're going to be at their best. So, hopefully that's something that we see moving forward. And you're right. I think those two are going to really have to shine in these next couple of games, because you saw Elliot Cadeau put together a strong performance today. We've seen there have been ebbs and flows with him, though. And, even at times with Cormac and Harrison. So having those two guys as the guys that you can trust, I think really goes a long way.
Yeah, some historical milestones today. RJ passed Antoine Jamison on the all-time scoring list at Carolina. I mentioned that Baycott recorded his 83rd double-double. That ties him with Derek Coleman and Lionel Simmons for 5th all-time in NCAA history in that department. We got this message here from Greg Ward. I was really worried about FSU, but my God, 48-22 on the glass. And Greg, we got into the rebounding performance a little bit earlier in the show. But a guy that was a big part of that was Seth Trimble, who had 5 rebounds off the bench. And he was impactful off the bench today for Carolina. He scored 12 points, was 4 of 7 from the field, 4 of 4 from the line, had 5 rebounds, 2 assists in 18 minutes. He actually left the game and had some work done on his lower back early in a sequence in the first half. But, you look at Carolina's bench, and they got 29 points. You got the 12 points from Trimble. Jalen Washington, only 2 points, but 6 rebounds. Another nice showing for Jalen Withers, 6 points, 7 rebounds in 14 minutes. You got, a 3-pointer from Paxton Wojcik. How about 4 points from Zayden High? And James Okonkwo got in on the action too. Even he scored a bucket. We talked all offseason long about developing a bench. Mm-hmm. And could Hubert Davis develop a bench to carry them through the ACC? And he did that. It was evident in November and in December this team was deeper. Did the rotation get smaller in ACC play? Of course it did. It always does. But I think you're at a point now, and look, every guy has a deficiency and a weakness. It's why they are a reserve player. But one thing that these guys do a really good job of is, whether it's Trimble, Withers, or Washington, they sustain the level of play that the starters have put on the basketball court. There isn't a big drop off. It's not like you're sitting there holding your breath the entire time that Baycott's on the bench, right, or RJ Davis is on the bench. I've kind of joked at different times where, heck, you got to sit them out closer to the media timeouts because they need to play close to 40 minutes. The truth is no, they don't. Like, I think for the first time in his 3 years as Carolina's head coach, Hubert Davis is comfortable having a reserve on the floor in a key moment. And you look at what Seth Trimble did today. He had a high-flying dunk. If he's going to be that impactful off the bench offensively, combined with his defense, it takes Carolina to another level. And it takes that bench unit to another level, because as good as they are and as good as they've been, you don't have a for sure bucket coming off the bench. But Trimble has shown the last couple games he's been a lot more aggressive, and when he's putting the ball in the basket, it takes Carolina's team and bench unit to a different gear.
I mean, look, he led the team in scoring in the second half of this game, so he was phenomenal. And that's what you are hoping you would be able to find this offseason. And what, the last two off seasons, when we would talk about it, we felt really confident, and then we'd get into the season and we'd realize pretty quickly, oh boy, we are stuck with maybe 7 if we're lucky. This year, I felt like early in the year, we looked at this group and we felt pretty good about them. And then we got to conference play, and there were people that started becoming concerned about the fact that Carolina's bench was not producing at the level that they needed to, that they weren't playing the minutes that they were, which then led to people complaining about Hubert Davis not playing his bench enough. Well, now they've found their groove. This is as productive as the bench has been in a very long time. Probably, again, we reference this season so often, but it's probably as productive as it's been since that 2018-19 season. And that was the last time when Carolina was really good and really exciting to watch, because that's the thing. You want to have trust in these guys. Seth Trimble is starting to play his best basketball of the season right now. And I think part of it is that, the added minutes that he's had to play, it's given him a little bit of confidence that, hey, whenever the freshman point guard struggles, they're going to me. I'm the guy that's being relied on. They have that much trust in me. And I think that's helped him. And you're seeing, today, really got to look at his mid-range jumper, which I think is starting to come into its own. He's starting to shoot the ball better. He's still not a guy that's, I think, has the confidence from the outside, which at times is, I wouldn't say frustrating, but, it sucks, because I think he's got a good enough shooting stroke that if he would pull some of those shots from the outside, he'd knock them down. But you're seeing a more confident guy on that end of the floor, and we know how good of a defender he is. And then, Jalen Washington, I think there was early in the season a clear drop-off when he would come into the game for Armando Bacot. I think as the season's gone along, you've seen that gap close. And no, this is not me pointing to Armando Bacot as the reason that gap is closed. It's Jalen Washington who has closed that gap and really taken a step forward. And then Jalen Withers is to me, you talk about the X factors for Carolina in their starting lineup. The X factor for Carolina's bench to have success at this point is Jalen Withers, because you can trust Seth Trimble. You're going to have to play Jalen Washington. But Jalen Withers has been hit and miss all season. And when Carolina's bench has been productive, it's because Jalen Withers is playing well. And playing well for Jalen Withers at times doesn't even mean that he is scoring the basketball at a high level. If this dude can continue to produce the way that he is on the glass, defend at the level that he is when he's on the floor, I think that really opens the door for Carolina to get to the Final Four, regardless of what bracket they are in, because he is just so versatile. He does so many different things for this team. And this is what we've been begging for from him from the entire season. And here's the thing. Even though we've been asking for that the entire season, if this is going to be the time when he's going to start playing his best basketball along with Seth Trimble and some of the other guys in the starting lineup, that's what you were hoping for when we started this season for this group. Muted.
I think Carolina's bench playing the way that it did. Starters got extensive rest. RJ Davis played the most minutes of any starter, 30 minutes. That's important because tomorrow night you might need your starters to all go 30-plus minutes. But your bench was, with your ability to, A, blow the game out, but B, your bench able to sustain the lead, you were able to rest your guys and save their legs for tomorrow night as you try to win 3 games in 3 days. Let's quickly get into our discussion topic. Because this game was non-competitive. Carolina was up, 16 at the break. They ultimately win the game by 25, and Carolina had some pretty, notable blowout wins during the ACC season. And they blew Syracuse out at home. They blew Notre Dame out at home. That game against Virginia Tech, They won by double digits, and their offense that day was really explosive and really efficient. How does this win compare to some of the dominant wins we saw in ACC play? And is there an argument to be made that this is the most dominant win we've seen over an ACC team this season?
Well, this is part of the reason why I should probably pull up the show grid before we end up starting the show. That would probably help because, yeah, I said it. I said it earlier, and to me, it really was just sort of setting the stage for the debate. So maybe I did do it right. But yeah, I mean, you talk about the win over Syracuse at home, dominant performance. I mean, from the word go, and that's what is probably different about that game than even some of than the other two games that we've talked about. I mean, Notre Dame to a certain extent was that same way, but I feel like Notre Dame was somewhat similar to this, where the teams were sort of battling back and forth early in the game. With Notre Dame, it was about the first 10 minutes. This game, it was about the first 14 minutes or so. And then that's when things really started to shift and Carolina took control of the game. So the thing is that, again, Syracuse at home, Notre Dame at home. This game was in a neutral site against a team that you had already played twice. You've talked about it multiple times. And people around sports, college basketball especially, talk about how difficult it is to win 3 games over a team in one season. And especially when that team has really played you well and hasn't come away with a victory in either one of those performances. So in their mind, I mean, look, they had done a lot of pretty much everything right. The only thing they hadn't been able to do was close you out. And so I think in their mind, they felt like there was an opportunity in this game. Maybe Notre Dame felt that same way. Syracuse did earlier in the season. But it really did feel like going against a team that had played as well as they did yesterday, had a player that scored 32 points in the game yesterday, who you took out of this game, did a great job defensively against. It felt like they were probably in for a fight. And for you to come out, dominate the way that you did, really dominate those middle 10 minutes, and that was really what completely changed the game. I think, yeah, to me, this is probably the most impressive win that you've had so far this season. And that really is saying a lot with some of the other ones, including a game like Tennessee that we saw earlier in the year.
Yeah, I think the reason why you can make the case this was the most dominant is because of what happened the first 2 times you played them, which was the first time you played them, you were down double digits. You had to go on a 22-0 run to take control of the game. The second game, you got up by 10. You blew the lead. We're actually trailing at halftime. Used a big second half to win the game. The second that Carolina turned it on and they went to another gear, this game became non-competitive. And a Jameer Watkins, a guy that scored 32 points yesterday, had 12 points today and was nowhere near the player it was 3 of 11 from the field in 30 minutes. Like, you took away their best player. You dominated them on the glass. You turned them over and you scored off of turnovers. You were efficient, in all 3 levels, scoring the basketball in terms of your field goal percentage, your 3-point percentage, and then your free throw percentage. Like, it was just all around dominant. Impressive. No, your most impressive win at Duke and the home win over Duke. But from a dominant standpoint, yeah, I think this is there because, like, when you blew Syracuse out in January, didn't really know how good Syracuse was going to be. They turned out to be decent, above average. They go 20-12. Adrian Autry did some nice things in the first season. You look at the Virginia Tech, game. Virginia Tech, away from home, just utterly abysmal. And then Notre Dame, had Notre Dame entered the game with 12 wins, and they had won 5 of their last 6 to get to 12 wins. Like, you were supposed to obliterate Notre Dame. Florida State's a team that matched up well with Carolina, had pushed Carolina as much as any team outside of the 3 teams that beat them in the ACC season. And for this game to be 15-15 at one point, to end up being a 46-30 halftime margin and a 92-67 final, just shows you that when Carolina, gets it, when Carolina puts it on and they get to their second gear, kind of like we saw from UConn today against Xavier. They're among one of the best teams in the country, and I think they're really solidifying themselves as maybe the 4th best team in all of college basketball. Well, guys, that is going to wrap up this edition of the show. Before we let you go, we do encourage you to visit the website HeelToughBlog.com. Anthony had you covered with the article of the game because I was on the air during the game, so we had you covered with the recap. I'll be back first thing tomorrow morning getting you ready for the game against Pittsburgh as a team effort will carry you through the ACC tournament as we continue to cover this basketball season as we inch closer and closer to Selection Sunday. Any, important news and notes that come out on Carolina football, of course, we'll have you covered on that front as we, getting closer to the Carolina Pro Day, and spring ball is right around the corner. As for the podcast, you guys know where to find us. Every major podcasting platform, simply search the Four Corners Podcast. We will pop up. We're there. We do encourage you guys to rate, review, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any editions of the show throughout the remainder of the season. Well, that is going to wrap up this edition of the show. Do want to thank Anthony once again for hosting with me. We want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.